captured moments, personalities, and everyday Black excellence that exist nowhere else in American media archives. Museums, universities, and research libraries compete to acquire complete collections because these magazines represent primary source material for understanding Black culture, politics, and social movements. Specific issues like Jet's coverage of Emmett Till's funeral or Ebony's features on Black business success have sold for over $1,000 to collectors who understand their historical significance. The magazines that families read and saved are now recognized as essential documents of American history that cannot be replaced or adequately reproduced. 3. Authentic dashikis and African art from the Black Pride era. Vintage dashikis made with traditional West African fabrics and authentic African sculptures and masks acquired during the Black Pride movement of the late 1960s and 1970s have appreciated enormously as both cultural artifacts and wearable art. Original garments featuring hand-woven kente cloth patterns, authentic wax print fabrics, and traditional tailoring techniques sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars to collectors and fashion historians who recognize their craftsmanship and cultural significance. The thing nobody tells you is that authenticated pieces from this era are increasingly rare as fabrics deteriorate and items get lost or discarded, making well-preserved examples from Black families' closets exponentially more valuable. Families who embraced African heritage during the Black Power movement often purchased hand-carved wooden sculptures, ceremonial masks, and decorative items directly from African artisans or specialized importers, acquiring genuine artifacts that are now worth far more than originally paid. What many overlook is that these items represented radical acts of cultural reclamation during an era when Eurocentric beauty standards dominated, making them significant beyond their monetary value as symbols of a generation reconnecting with ancestral roots. Original dashikis worn at Black Panther rallies, worn to Soul Train tapings, or displayed at Kwanzaa celebrations carry provenance that increases their worth. Museums devoted to African American history and culture actively collect these materials to document the aesthetic dimension of Black consciousness movements. The clothing and art that affirmed Black beauty and African heritage have transformed from personal statements into historical treasures that institutions preserve for future generations. 4. Black Panther Party materials and civil rights memorabilia. Original Black Panther Party newspapers, membership materials, and protest ephemera from the late 1960s and early 1970s have become extraordinarily valuable to collectors, historians, and institutions studying radical political movements. Issues of the Black Panther newspaper, especially early editions or those featuring historic events, regularly sell for hundreds of dollars, with complete runs fetching thousands at specialized auctions. The thing nobody tells you is that materials from the party's community programs, particularly breakfast program documentation, health clinic records, and educational materials, are even more valuable because they document the organization's community service work that mainstream media ignored while focusing on armed confrontation imagery. Black families who participated in or supported the movement and kept flyers, posters, photographs, and organizational materials are holding important historical documents that museums and universities desperately want to preserve. What many overlook is that personal items like membership cards, buttons, patches, and clothing with authentic Black Panther imagery are highly prized by collectors who understand that these artifacts represent courage and commitment to social justice. Original posters featuring Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, Angela Davis, and other party leaders in mint condition have sold for over $5,000. Photographs documenting party activities, especially those capturing community programs or lesser-known members, provide invaluable historical documentation. The materials that some families kept as dangerous mementos they could have been arrested for possessing are now recognized as crucial primary sources for understanding one of America's most significant radical movements. 5. Signed Muhammad Ali fight memorabilia and photographs. Memorabilia from Muhammad Ali's legendary boxing career, particularly items from his most famous fights, has become some of the most valuable sports collectibles in existence, with authentic signed pieces selling for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Original fight posters, programs, and ticket stubs from the Rumble in the Jungle, the Thrilla in Manila, and Ali's fights against Joe Frazier are prized by collectors who understand that Ali represented far more than athletic excellence. He embodied Black pride, religious conviction, and principled resistance to injustice. The thing nobody tells you is that items from Ali's Vietnam War resistance period and his exile from boxing are particularly valuable because they document his sacrifice for principle, making them significant to civil rights collectors as well as sports memorabilia enthusiasts. Black families who attended Ali's fights or collected materials celebrating the champion they viewed as a cultural hero are holding investments that have appreciated dramatically. What many overlook is that even seemingly minor items like newspaper clippings, magazine covers, and promotional materials have value when they document specific moments in Ali's career. Signed boxing gloves, photographs, and personal items have sold at major auctions for staggering sums, with authenticated signatures essential for establishing value. Training photographs, candid shots, and images capturing Ali with Black community members are particularly sought after. The memorabilia celebrating the greatest represents a time when a Black athlete used his platform to challenge authority and inspire a generation, making these items valuable beyond their connection to boxing history. 6. Original Blaxploitation movie posters in pristine condition. Theatrical posters from the 1970s Blaxploitation films have become highly collectible pieces of cinema history, with original one-sheets from major releases selling for thousands of dollars to film collectors and cultural historians. Posters for Shaft, Superfly, Foxy Brown, Coffee, The Mac, and other iconic films feature bold graphic design and powerful imagery of Black protagonists that represent a unique moment when Hollywood acknowledged Black audiences. The thing nobody tells you is that original theatrical release posters are exponentially more valuable than later reproductions, with authentication and condition critically affecting price. Black families who saved these posters from theaters where they worked or from promotional giveaways are holding pieces of cinematic history that document when Black characters finally became action heroes rather than stereotypical sidekicks. What many overlook is that the soundtracks from these films, particularly Isaac Hayes' Shaft and Curtis Mayfield's Superfly on original vinyl, have their own substantial collector value. Lobby cards, press kits, and promotional photographs from Blaxploitation films also fetch premium prices from collectors building comprehensive archives. These materials represent more than entertainment. They document a brief period when Black filmmakers and performers gained unprecedented creative control, creating films that spoke directly to Black audiences about their realities, frustrations, and fantasies. The posters that decorated bedroom walls and basement rec rooms have transformed into recognized art that museums include in exhibitions exploring Black visual culture and representation. 7. Vintage Negro League baseball programs and memorabilia. Original programs, tickets, photographs, and equipment from Negro League baseball have become extraordinarily valuable as collectors and institutions recognize the significance of this segregated era, when Black baseball players created their own professional leagues and achieved excellence despite discrimination. Items from legendary teams like the Kansas City Monarchs, Homestead Grays, Pittsburgh Crawfords, and Newark Eagles regularly sell for thousands of dollars at sports memorabilia auctions. The thing nobody tells you is that game-worn jerseys, equipment, and signed items from legendary players like Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, and Buck O'Neil are museum-quality artifacts that command 5- or 6-figure prices when authenticated. Black families who attended Negro League games and saved programs, tickets, or pennants as souvenirs are holding irreplaceable pieces of sports history that document Black excellence during segregation. What many overlook is that photographs, particularly team photos and action shots, provide visual documentation of players and games that might otherwise be forgotten, making them valuable to historians reconstructing this era. Original uniforms, equipment, and personal items from players have sold for staggering amounts, As the baseball world increasingly recognizes that Negro League players were among the greatest ever to play the game, museums and private collectors compete aggressively for these materials, driving prices higher each year. The memorabilia that celebrated Sunday afternoon entertainment has become recognized as documentation of athletic achievement and Black entrepreneurship during one of America's most segregated periods. 8. Hand-quilted textiles made by Black grandmothers. Quilts created by Black women using traditional patterns passed through generations have transformed from functional bedding into recognized folk art that museums and collectors pay substantial sums to acquire. Quilts from the Gee's Bend community in Alabama, known for their bold improvisational patterns and vibrant colors, have sold for tens of thousands of dollars and been featured in major art exhibitions. The thing nobody tells you is that many Black families possess similar quilts made by their own grandmothers and great-grandmothers using techniques rooted in African textile traditions, combined with American quilting practices, creating unique pieces that carry both artistic and monetary value. Families who inherited these quilts and continued using them as bedding or stored them away are discovering that textile historians and folk art collectors recognize them as important cultural artifacts. What many overlook is that the fabrics used, often scraps from clothing, feed sacks, and other found materials, tell stories about the families who made them, documenting economic conditions and daily life through their material choices. The improvisational aesthetic that characterizes many Black quilting traditions has influenced contemporary art and design, increasing scholarly and collector interest. Museums devoted to folk art and African American culture actively seek authentic quilts to preserve quilting traditions that might otherwise be lost. The quilts that kept families warm through cold nights have been recognized as artistic achievements that deserve preservation and study, transforming utilitarian objects into valuable pieces of cultural heritage. 9. First edition Roots by Alex Haley and miniseries Memorabilia. First edition copies of Roots, published in 1976, particularly those signed by Alex Haley or with interesting provenance, have become valuable collectibles that sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on condition. The groundbreaking novel that traced Haley's family history from Africa through slavery to freedom became a cultural phenomenon, and original copies from that first printing are prized by collectors. The thing nobody tells you is that presentation copies given by Haley to friends or colleagues, editions with his handwritten notes or inscriptions, and copies with documented connections to the author command premium prices at rare book auctions. Black families who purchase Roots when it was first released and preserve their copies in good condition with intact dust jackets are holding books that have appreciated significantly. What many overlook is that memorabilia from the groundbreaking television miniseries that aired in 1977, including original promotional materials, press kits, TV guide issues featuring the show, and behind-the-scenes photographs, also carry substantial collector value. The cultural impact of Roots cannot be overstated. It changed how Black Americans understood their history and how the nation discussed slavery, making materials associated with both the book and miniseries historically significant. Collectors seek complete documentation of this cultural moment, from the novel through the television event that drew record audiences. The book that helped families understand their ancestral connections has become a valuable artifact, documenting when American culture finally confronted slavery's legacy with unprecedented honesty and emotional impact. 10. Vintage Afro picks with Black Power fist handles. The metal Afro picks featuring raised Black Power fist handles that were ubiquitous in Black households during the 1970s have become surprisingly valuable collectibles that serious collectors of Black Americana actively seek. These grooming tools that once seemed like ordinary household items now sell for hundreds of dollars when found in original packaging or excellent condition. The thing nobody tells you is that the picks combined functionality with political symbolism, turning an everyday grooming necessity into a statement of Black pride and consciousness, making them significant cultural artifacts beyond their practical purpose. Black families who kept these picks in bathroom drawers or stored them away rather than discarding them when hairstyles changed, are discovering their unexpected collector value. What many overlook is that variations exist, some featuring simple raised fists, others with elaborate sculptural handles that were as much art as tool, with unusual designs commanding higher prices from collectors. The Afro pick became an iconic symbol appearing in photographs, artwork, and media representations of the Black Power era, making authentic examples from that period valuable to historians and collectors, documenting the aesthetic of Black consciousness. Museums collecting African American cultural materials include vintage Afro picks and exhibitions exploring how everyday objects carried political meaning. The grooming tools that helped create the hairstyles symbolizing Black pride have transformed into artifacts representing a generation's assertion that Black beauty required no alteration or apology. 11. Vintage products and packaging from Black-owned beauty companies, original containers, advertising materials, and product packaging from pioneering Black-owned beauty companies like Madam C.J. Walker's Enterprises, Johnson Products, and other early businesses have become collectible pieces of entrepreneurial history that document Black economic self-determination. Vintage ultra-sheen containers, Afro-sheen packaging, Duke products, and other beauty items from the 1970s trigger nostalgia while also representing important business history. The thing nobody tells you is that trade show materials, sales catalogs, promotional items, and store displays from these companies are particularly valuable to collectors and historians studying Black entrepreneurship. Black families who worked for these companies or simply used their products and saved packaging are holding artifacts that document an industry where Black business ownership achieved remarkable success despite systemic barriers. What many overlook is that these beauty companies represented more than cosmetics. They were institutions that employed thousands, advertised in Black media, and affirmed that Black beauty deserved products specifically designed for Black hair and skin rather than adaptations of products made for white consumers. Original advertisements featuring these products, particularly those using Black models and celebrating natural hair textures, are valuable both aesthetically and historically. Museums and academic institutions studying Black economic history actively collect these materials to document industries where Black entrepreneurs achieved success and created products that strengthened community identity. The beauty products that filled bathroom cabinets have become recognized as evidence of Black business achievement and cultural affirmation. 12. Apollo Theater programs and performance memorabilia. Original programs, tickets, posters, and photographs from performances at Harlem's legendary Apollo Theater have become highly valuable collectibles that document the pinnacle of Black entertainment history. Materials from shows featuring James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, and countless other legendary performers who graced the Apollo stage command premium prices from collectors. The thing nobody tells you is that amateur night programs, from the Wednesday shows that launched careers of stars like Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and Michael Jackson, are particularly valuable because they document performers before they achieved fame. Black families who attended shows and kept their programs, especially those who went regularly and accumulated collections spanning years, are holding pieces of music history that museums and collectors desperately want to preserve. What many overlook is that backstage photographs, autographed items, and materials from special events at the theater carry even greater value due to their rarity. The Apollo represented more than entertainment. It was the ultimate proving ground where Black performers earned validation from the toughest audience in show business, making its historical materials significant beyond typical concert memorabilia. Original promotional posters, especially those advertising historic performances or milestone events, have sold for thousands of dollars. The programs that families saved as mementos of special nights out have become documentation of American music history that cannot be adequately preserved through recordings alone. 13. Original funk and soul concert posters from the 1970s. Concert posters and handbills advertising performances by Parliament Funkadelic, Earth, Wind & Fire, the Ohio Players, and other funk and soul acts from the 1970s have become highly valuable to music collectors who recognize them as both promotional ephemera and psychedelic art. The bold colors, elaborate typography, and distinctive graphic design of these posters captured the energy and creativity of the music itself, making them visually striking pieces that appeal to art collectors beyond just music fans. The thing nobody tells you is that posters advertising shows at specific venues, particularly those that no longer exist like San Francisco's Fillmore or New York's Apollo, carry additional historical value because they document the geography of Black music performance. Black families who attended these concerts and save posters either as mementos or as bedroom decorations are holding items that now sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the artist, venue, and condition. What many overlook is that original silk-screened posters created in limited runs are worth substantially more than later offset reproductions, with authentication crucial for establishing value. Backstage passes, ticket stubs, and promotional materials from these shows also attract collector interest as complementary documentation. The venues themselves, many demolished or repurposed, add nostalgic value to these promotional materials that captured a moment when funk and soul ruled Black radio and concert halls. The posters that advertise weekend entertainment have been recognized as important documents of musical and visual culture from funk's golden era. 14. Vintage church fans from historic Black funeral homes. The cardboard funeral home fans that Black churches distributed to congregants during summer services have become collectible folk art that documents both religious culture and Black business history. These fans typically featured religious imagery on one side and funeral home advertising on the other, creating unique artifacts that combined worship, commerce, and community memory. The thing nobody tells you is that fans from funeral homes that no longer exist are particularly valuable because they preserve the names and histories of Black businesses that serve communities for generations before closing. Black families who kept these fans after services or who inherited collections from relatives are discovering that folk art collectors and historians pay premium prices for complete sets documenting specific funeral homes or featuring particular imagery. What many overlook is that fans depicting Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus as a Black man, or other culturally significant images command higher prices than generic religious scenes. Some collectors focus on fans from specific cities or regions, building archives that document the funeral homes that served Black communities across the South and in northern cities where Southern migrants settled. Museums collecting African American cultural materials recognize these fans as important artifacts that document religious life, business culture, and artistic traditions within Black communities. The fans that provided cooling during long Sunday services have been recognized as historical documents deserving preservation and study.